Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are uncovering the absolutely fascinating dual life of Reverend Jonathan Oatley. We're stepping back into 19th century rural Connecticut to look at a guy whose legacy wasn't just spoken from a wooden pulpit, but was literally carved in granite. We're going to explore how one man managed a deeply integrated vocation, truly mastering both word and stone.
Okay, let's dive right into this wild paradox. Think about it for a second. Imagine, on one hand, the chaotic, ear-splitting blast of black powder echoing through a dusty granite quarry. And then, on the other, the quiet, reverent whispers of a Sunday church congregation. You have to wonder, how does a man who spends his entire week shattering solid rock with explosives suddenly pivot to delivering tender pastoral care on Sundays? It sounds like a total contradiction, right? But as you'll see, for Jonathan Oatley, these two worlds didn't just coexist, they actually fueled one another.
So let's start with the grit of the quarry and 19th century stone cutting.
Let's actually walk through this brutal physical labor step by step. First step, they had to clear away the heavy soil by wheelbarrow just to find the seams of the rock. Then came the incredibly dangerous extraction. Notice they specifically used precise black powder charges instead of dynamite. Why? Because dynamite would have aggressively shattered that valuable stone into useless little fragments. It was a terrifyingly exact science. After a careful blast preserved those large blocks, they moved to splitting the granite along its natural grain. They'd use hand tools like wedges and these metal shims known as feathers. Then came the rough cutting, and finally the meticulous fine finishing, all by hand. Every single step required immense physical strength and exact precision. Literally one misplaced blow with a heavy hammer could ruin weeks of grueling work.
And look, this dangerous, sweat-drenched work, it definitely wasn't just some weekend hobby. Historical census records prove it. In 1850, Jonathan is officially listed as a stonecutter. 10 years later, in 1860, he's recorded as a mason. And by 1870, his son Joseph is carrying on the title of stonecutter. Working the quarry was a core, multi-generational family trade. They were out there year-round, whenever the weather permitted, shivering through those harsh New England winters and sweating through the incredibly humid summers.
Moving right along to products, prices, and customers, or the economics of stone.
So what were they actually making in the mid-19th century? Well, the Oatleys were cutting standard building stone by the cubic foot and basic gravestone starting around $5. But their premium product? That was custom-cut church steps. This was a highly specialized offering running anywhere from $50 to $200 for a complete set. Just looking at these figures, you can see how those custom church steps represented weeks of highly skilled, highly valued labor. They were crafting monumental architectural elements that required an absolute mastery of the stone.
Now the crucial takeaway here is this number, $1,000. By the 1850 census, Jonathan Oatley's real property was valued at $1,000. Back then, that was a highly respectable chunk of change. It proves that this heavy, relentless labor provided crucial economic stability. And honestly, he desperately needed it because Jonathan was supporting a massive family of 14 children. 14! Traditional expectations for ministerial pay were fluctuating wildly during this era, so the stone was quite literally his family's true financial bedrock.
It's also fascinating to see who was buying from him. His customer base was deeply intertwined with his community, ranging from local builders to municipal infrastructure projects and fellow Windham County church members. Most importantly, his pastoral role gave him a natural, profound connection to this market. As a minister, he was the guy performing the baptisms, officiating the weddings, and presiding over the funerals for families in East Killingly. So when those same families needed a monument to grieve a lost loved one, Jonathan was the community's trusted choice to physically carve the memories into stone.
Which brings us to the real heart of this explainer. How stone shaped sermons, the synthesis.
This is where it gets really good. His daily labor deeply enriched his preaching. When Reverend Oatley stood up in the pulpit and preached about Christ as the cornerstone, or about building your house upon the rock, it wasn't just abstract, lofty theology. The man literally cut cornerstones with his own hands. This had immediate, literal meaning to a guy who knew exactly which stone would hold the weight of a building and which stone had a hidden fissure that would inevitably crack under pressure. His congregation wasn't just hearing a sermon. They were getting the hard-earned wisdom of a master craftsman.
And this physical reality translated into a beautiful theology of craftsmanship. Think of it like this. Just as a rough, unrefined stone is carefully, physically shaped into a polished monument, Oatley viewed an unregenerate soul as undergoing the discipline of sanctification to become a transformed Christian life. It's an amazing parallel. Just as hidden flaws in a block of granite only reveal themselves under the brutal strike of the chisel, Oatley taught his congregation that our own hidden spiritual weaknesses only emerge when we are put under the intense trials and pressures of life.
So what did this dual life actually do for him? Well, it had massive practical benefits for his ministry. First, it fostered immense empathy. He wasn't some gentleman minister completely removed from everyday life. His congregation of farmers and laborers knew for a fact he earned his bread by the sweat of his brow. Second, it granted him spiritual and financial independence. During the 1847 church exclusion episode, which was a time of really intense local church disputes, his stone-cutting income completely shielded him. He didn't have to compromise his beliefs just to secure a pastoral paycheck. He taught his sons the dignity of manual labor and ultimately proved that hands could be simultaneously calloused from the quarry and consecrated for the pulpit.
Finally, let's look at a legacy in granite: enduring foundations.
There's this fantastic summation of his life that states, he knew both scripture and stone, both faith and the feel of granite under the chisel. I mean, that absolutely nails it. This proves his life wasn't some divided, fractured existence. It was a deeply integrated vocation. Working the quarry didn't distract from his preaching, it actively deepened it. He brought the raw authenticity of the hard-working world right into the sanctuary. When Jonathan Oatley passed away, society officially remembered him on paper simply as a clergyman. That's what his death certificate said. But the stone tells the fuller story. Remember those premium custom granite steps we talked about earlier? Well, he cut a long set of those steps for the so-called Kentuck Church. Years later, that original church building was completely demolished, but Oatley's steps were of such incredibly high quality that they survived the demolition. They were actually picked up and moved to the Union Baptist Church in East Killingly, where they are still serving the congregation today. His craftsmanship literally outlasted the original building it was made for.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think about Jonathan Oatley's incredibly integrated life and ask yourself, what enduring foundations are you building in your own life? How might your daily, physical labor and your deeper, spiritual purpose intersect to create a legacy that outlasts you? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep building on solid rock.